Hello. If you're struggling with automating away and reaching 100% of automation and you can't get there, well, you're not alone, because test automation with tools like Selenium, Cypress, and Playwright is just plain unscalable. The test maintenance is so huge it will consume 100% of the time of a QA automation engineer at around 300 to 300 end-to-end test cases. Why is that? Well, it's because when you do that, you rely on details of implementation. You would use XPaths, CSS inductors, IDs, data test IDs, names, and so on and so forth. These all are the details of how engineers implemented it yesterday and can change at any moment, as opposed to how the system should function from end user's perspective. And a good thing is testRigor has a solution. And I'll demonstrate how to do that and how to avoid constantly fixing your test cases by using testRigor. So let's create a simple test suite. As you can see, when I'm creating test suite, I'm specifying the URL for the test case and give it a name, URL of test suite, and I'm just creating the new test suite and asking it not to generate any test cases for me out of the box. All right, and let's write a simple test case, finding Kindle. So this is how we'll call it, and what we'll do is we enter Kindle into search and then type enter. And then we will want to select specific type of the Kindle is Kindle Paperwhite. And then we would want to validate that page contains Kindle. Very, very trivialistic test case. Let's kick it off. So the way testRigor works is testRigor is a human emulator. It will run the commands the same exact way as a human. So testRigor will emulate how would you do manual testing. And to do that, it runs the OS, then it starts the browser. In that browser, it opens that URL that we have specified when we created the test suite. Then it will wait until page loads, and then it will take the screenshot, upload the screenshot, and then it will start to execute the commands that you have provided. And in this particular case, as you can see, we asked it to enter Kindle and type enter. That it did, and it clicked on a Paperwhite. In here on a Kindle Paperwhite, and drum roll, voila, somewhere on that page you should be able to find Paperwhite. It looks okay to me in here. Now, in order to emulate engineers constantly changing the rendering, updating the framework, updating elements, updating HTML, we would just run the same test case on completely different website. As you can see, Newegg also sells Kindles, but the UI is completely different. So how to do it is you go to test suite, we change the URL, and we rerun the whole test suite and say, yes, please rerun everything. So the same exact process will repeat. Now, what are we trying to emulate here? So first of all, of course, you are not going to rerun the same test cases on completely different systems. That does not make any sense. However, you should expect your engineers to constantly change the rendering of how system work. So we're trying to emulate it here by basically substituting the URL and saying, hey, this is how it looked previously, and maybe tomorrow it will look like this. So we want to make sure that our system still functions, and it helps us to validate that our search functions properly. And it does exactly the same thing here. As you can see, entered Kindle and clicked on Kindle Paperwhite, and so voila. So we have this Paperwhite validated on the screen, and this is how stable your test cases should be, and this is how testRigor helps our customers to avoid being drowned by obscene amount of test maintenance. Now let me reiterate once again why it is so important. The impact of changes from engineers is disproportionately huge on QA automation. For example, just a small change of the versioning of the UI framework or updating some root element in HTML can have disproportionately gigantic impact on QA automation, where a lot of tests will fail, but most importantly, each of test failure will introduce huge overhead on QA engineers. Because think about it, if a test fail, first of all, only QA automation engineers can figure out what is going on. No one else can help in there. So automation engineer would go and have to see what is going on with the test case. She or he will figure out where is the failure, then start the system, then go through the steps to get to this failure page. Then we will assess, okay, is it actually a bug or something changed? If something changed, then we need to find another element, figure out the locator, and then update the locator in QA automation code, and then do it many more times for every single test that had failed, and then submit the changes for the review in SDLC, so it actually gets to the always green test suite. So the overhead could be huge. We're talking about 15 seconds from engineering time with probably minor changes from engineering perspective can introduce hours and hours and hours of gigantic overhead, and maybe even days of overhead on QA automation. And this is why people are bogged down with test maintenance and can't achieve their automation goals, because they constantly are busy with updating existing tests. And this is exactly what testRigor solves for our customers. It allows our customers to use plain English to build test cases purely from end user's perspective, explaining how systems should function on end user level, as opposed to testing how engineers coded it yesterday. So think about it. If you're relying on details of implementation, you are testing how engineers coded your system yesterday, as opposed to how it should function from end user's perspective. And therefore, also, for example, then engineers need your tests the most when we do update the rendering significantly, when we do migrate from one UI framework to another, what happens is majority of test automation fails and is not helpful. Moreover, it actually introduces gigantic overhead on fixing all the tests on top of it. And what people end up doing is QA automation engineers, instead of doing automation, are doing manual testing because all the tests are broken, and then we're doing fixing of existing test cases because you need to update to adapt to the new UI framework. This is exact opposite from what you would want from your QA automation framework for end-to-end testing. Mind you, for unit testing and integration testing, it might be different. But specifically for end-to-end testing, you want your system to be able to validate that functionality works from end user's perspective, even though rendering changed completely and dramatically. You want to make sure whatever engineers are doing, regardless if they're changing frameworks or rendering, your automated test should help engineers to validate that end-to-end system still functions the same way as it's supposed to. Thank you very much.